morning, Suncoat. It's good to be with you guys, and we're really excited. We got 1 week before Christmas Eve services, and we are pumped. We have 3 services happening, so you don't want to miss it. Invite your friends, your family, your neighbor, whether you like them or you don't. It's going to be one of those moments where we set aside the little things in life, and we focus on what's greater and bigger, and you're not going to want to miss it. It's going to be awesome. That's going to be at 3, 4:30, and 6. You guys excited? Awesome. Let's sing a couple more, and I want to see how excited you guys are. Let's get a little loud this morning. Let's do it. Take time just to own it. Go the fine line, your balance is forward. In the depth of a canyon, a voice is an ocean. The past is so heavy, my arms are still open. My arms are still open. So tightly, I want it to be you. Just open up your arms, yeah. Just open up your arms, yeah. Just open up your arms, yeah. Start to carry you out to the open. Let my love be the lifeline as I pull the rope in. Let my love be contagious and shine in the darkness. Will you be the voice and I'll be the dry land? If I'm gonna hold on to something so tightly, I want it to be you. Just open up your arms and 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 said and done, all that matters is love.
Know that you love me. Know that you love
Not just in
me.
part, but in all that you are.
Love never fails.
Take,
Love never fails.
said and done, all that matters is love. So let love
Take over. Not just in part, but in all that you are. Let your love take over. All said and done, all that matters is love. So let love take over. Not just in part, but
thought by now they'd fall. You never failed me yet. And waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won. And for you have never failed me yet. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands, and this is my confidence. You never failed me yet. You never failed me. Knowing the night won't last, well, your word will come to pass, and my heart will sing your praise again. I will sing. Well, Jesus, you're still enough, so keep me within your love. Oh, my heart will sing your praise again. Come on. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. Never fail. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. Never failed me yet. You never failed me. Thank you guys so much for singing out with us this morning. Enjoy the rest of the service.
Good morning. It's good to see you today, and let me just practice the Merry Christmas stuff. Merry Christmas. It's good to see you. This is the last week before Christmas Eve service, which is on Friday. And so Friday we'll have 3 services. The notes are in your hand, but it's at 3 o'clock, 4:30, and 6 o'clock. The service is about 45 minutes each. It's going to be some carols, a little bit of fun drama. I'll tell a Christmas story, and then we'll light the candles. So everyone will have a candle when you come in. It's a great 45-minute celebration about your family. So if you want to take 45 minutes out, you can go do that. And we try to design it to where it's brief, some great photo ops throughout the building, so you can have family pictures as well. But that's coming on this coming Friday, Christmas Eve. Also next weekend, it's Take a Break weekend. The last weekend of the year for the last 15 years, we honor our volunteers by saying, you need a break too. So we give all our volunteers the weekend off. So there will be no services here live on Christmas, the day after Christmas, but there will be something online. So we'll record a devotion. There'll be some music recorded for you so you can stay home and watch it from home. So it's like 51 weeks of the year I tell you to come to church, and 1 week I tell you to stay home. So, but anyways, thank you so much for being here. Life is good for us. So it's Christmas season. And today I want to talk to you about, the series Chaos. And let me start with a little chaos. Last Sunday, after the service here, I went home and my wife had her entire family over. And that was 42 of us at my house for Sunday after church. And then on Thursday, we had a staff party, which is just under 60 showed up for a staff party at a restaurant, but not at my house. But yesterday, at my house, the Baucom clan arrived. There's some of them here. I don't want to say anything bad about them because they'll throw fruit. So, but we had 41 at my house yesterday during the day for another family celebration. So when I talk to you about Christmas chaos, this is not hearsay. I understand what it's about. But can I remind you that Christmas is a wonderful time of year? And that every time we get together at Christmas, we should rejoice with our families and celebrate the best we can. Because for some of us, at a certain age, you go, well, how many more Christmases are there? That's a morbid thought. But here's the thing, celebrate every one, because they're all important and they're all valuable. And so when I'm talking about Christmas chaos today, we'll start with the Greek word. The Greek word for chaos is? Chaos, exactly. You guys, so you didn't know you knew a Greek word already. So the Greek word for chaos is chaos. In the original language, it meant the initial state of the universe, the lack of order. Chaos really doesn't need a whole lot of definition, but it means disorder. So in this series, and this is the last of 4 weeks, we've been talking about, how do we do with the chaos at Christmas time? And we've pointed out several things that create chaos. One of the things that creates chaos is calendaring. And so all the calendar that goes on, and I just gave you just a little bit of my calendar, but some of you have party after party after party, and you're in chaos mode about the parties. But what can I do if my calendar gets overwhelmed and I'm stressed? How can I manage it? Here's what the takeaway was week 1. Find a quiet time. I start my day every day at the feet of Jesus, listening to him. I practice what's called contemplative prayer. So what is contemplative prayer? It's being unconditionally present with God, recognizing God's presence with me. There are many kinds of prayer. For example, there's eloquent and unscripted prayer. What is that? When I'm done, I'll say, stand, we'll have prayer. That's an eloquent, unscripted prayer. Maybe not so eloquent, but at least it's unscripted. There are people who write their prayers because they want to be sure they get all the words right, because God doesn't like typos. So you write those prayers out. There's some people, well, it's more than that. They put more thought into it. There are spoken prayers, there are silent prayers, but a contemplative prayer is basically a silent prayer. Mother Teresa of Calcutta was once approached by veteran journalist Dan Rather, who asked her, when you pray, what do you say to God? And Mother Teresa replied, I listen. Then what does God say to you? Dan Rather asked. And she said, God listens. See, there are moments of silence that really are important. We realize that God is with us. God is not out there somewhere above the clouds. He's with us every day. He's all around us. So I've discovered less chaos, more of God with me. It's in a moment of silence that helps reorder my calendar. Week 2, we talked about financial chaos, and Pastor Troy did a great job of that. The answer to this chaos is peace. Sometimes we realize that our finances are not just for us to spend all that we have on ourselves, but God uses us to feed others. And he's talked about the story of the feeding of the 5,000. I take responsibility when I use my resources to help others. And it takes some of the stress off when you're using your resources for others. Week 3, we talked about what I can do to minimize the relational conflict and chaos. Christmas can stress relationships. When the busy season dominates, when the finances have diminished, when my fuse gets shorter, often the people who notice that are the people closest to me. So there's a stress in relationships. What can I do to overcome that? This Christmas, we talked about this last week, I will begin to value others, not devalue them. I will begin to self-examine and realize what I need to do to make my fuse a little bit longer. And this Christmas, I will begin to accept others as God has accepted me. And last week, the challenge was, some of you have family members you haven't talked to in years. And some of you, there's a rift, there's a fight, there was some estate issues or whatever. But at some point in your life, life is too short to have unresolved relational issues. So my challenge last week, sometimes we need to take the first step. And maybe it's a text or an email or whatever, but take this first step in offering the olive branch to those around us who we may not have communicated with in a long time. So back to the Christmas story. You know, if you read the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and you want to find out about Christmas, if you read Matthew, you get one slant. The Gospel of Matthew tells us that Jesus he came as a king. He was the Messiah. The sages or the wise men from the east came and brought him gifts fit for a king, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Herod is threatened by this new king, and Joseph has to take the baby and they flee to Egypt. In Matthew, the genealogy starts with Jesus and goes all the way back to Abraham, because Matthew wants us to know he is the Messiah. He's the King of the Jews. This is who Jesus is. If you want to find out who Jesus was in the birth narratives in Mark, you know what you find in Mark? Nothing. Mark has nothing to say about the birth of Jesus. He starts with the life and ministry of Jesus. So that's easy. Let's go to Luke. What does Luke have to say? Luke, he gives the poor man's view. Joseph is a poor carpenter. He travels with Mary to Bethlehem. A shepherd community comes to welcome the people's Messiah. The humble, born in a cave, used by animals as a barn. The genealogy in Luke starts with Jesus and goes all the way back, not to Abraham, but goes all the way back to Adam and Eve. Now let's go to the fourth gospel, John. John talks about a different type of birth narrative. John does not talk about the baby, but begins the story of Jesus at the very creation of the world. He's interested in helping us make the connection between order and disorder. John calls Jesus the Logos, Logos, and the Logos is the opposite of chaos. One is disorder, the other is order. John wants us to see that Jesus was the light that overcomes the darkness. I mean, he is the order that overcomes the disorder. He's the life force that changes everything for John. Do you know in the Old Testament, when God has revealed the stories we have, when we try to understand who God is, you read the Old Testament, what you find out, he is a God to be feared. For example, when Moses was at the burning bush, he was afraid. When the 10 plagues came against Egypt, they were afraid. When they were led out of Egypt, they were led by a pillar of fire, and they were afraid of the pillar of fire. When God came down in a cloud on the mountain of smoke, the people said, Moses, you go in there, we're too afraid. Fear was there when the fire consumed the sacrifice on Mount Carmel with Elijah. Fear was also there when Rome ruled Israel brutally. But as we transition from this God of fear in the Old Testament to the New Testament, we find chaos still there. An edict was issued by the government for all to gather and be counted. You know what I call this? This is a government mandate. And here's the mandate. For all the world to be vaccinated. No, that wasn't it. For all the world to be masked. No, that wasn't it either. But there's still these mandates. A mandate for all those in Israel to go to your hometown and be counted. Why can't you count me here? Because it would be a lot more chaotic if you had to travel. and that's the government. So Joseph and Mary had to travel to Bethlehem for the census. Now, how chaotic, how frustrating. Have you noticed that chaos seems to come in a storm? It's not usually one thing that makes it chaotic. It's many things. And that's the nature of chaos: disorder, conflict, lack of harmony. Today we're going to examine how the concept of the holy begins to calm the storm of crisis. Today I want us to see how joy can erupt our lives despite crisis. 2,000 years ago, a baby was born in a manger. The story of Christmas is that God revealed himself to humanity in the baby Jesus. And even though John states that the Logos revealed in the person of Jesus, the chaos didn't disappear. It existed. It keeps existing. Sometimes we have trouble getting control of it. It existed then, it exists today. It's there. When groups lose compassion for those outside their camps, it's chaotic. But chaos also exists in our families. How do we deal with chaos this year? Let me tell you some words that will help create chaos. Alzheimer's, dementia, leukemia, cancer, COVID, a heart attack, a fall, a serious injury, a fatal accident. How do we explain these unexplainable events? How do we allow the chaos in our lives to be confronted by the Logos? That's the question today, and the question I want to help solve. So we're going to look at the passage from Luke chapter 2. I'll read it for you. You can follow along. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. And while they were there, the time came for the baby to be born. She gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger because there was no guest room available for them. And there were shepherds living out in the fields nearby, keeping watch over their flocks at night. An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone round them, and they were terrified. But the angel said to them, "Don't be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all the people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He's the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You'll find a baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger." Suddenly, a great company of the heavenly host appeared with the angel, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth peace to those on whom his favor rests." When the angels had left them and gone into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let's go to Bethlehem and see these things that had happened, which the Lord has told us about." So they hurried off and found Mary and Joseph and the baby who was lying in the manger. Let me give you the first point. It's in your notes. You can fill in the blank. 3 things today. Number 1 is this: hope was given to the world when a baby was born in Bethlehem. Mary gave birth to a boy. She was pregnant, and she had to travel 90 miles from Nazareth to Bethlehem. Can you imagine traveling 90 miles? Now, we don't know exactly how she traveled. Some say, there's no mention of a donkey. Some say she walked. I'm convinced she rode Joseph's donkey all the way there. You can fill in the blank there if you want. But all we have when she gets there is Joseph and some livestock. Can you imagine traveling that? And I've been on that 90 miles, 5 days. The question, if I were Mary, where's my mother? I want my mom. Or where's my aunts? I need my aunts. And all I have is Joseph, who's a carpenter, and some livestock. And on the trip, to have a medical issue is one thing. You ever traveled and gotten sick? Oh, I have. I've traveled with some of you to Israel many times, and I've actually had to bring the doctors into the hotels where you're staying to give you antibiotics because you've been sick along the way. But to have a medical issue is one thing, but to be pregnant and going to have a baby is an entirely different circumstance of chaos. About 15 or 16 years ago, Becky and I found out we were going to become grandparents. It was a time of adjustment. I talked to Stacy. I remember when she had the conversation, and she said, "Yeah, we're going to have a baby." I said, "What?" First of all, several things. Number 1, I'm too young to be a grandfather. Secondly, I was not consulted. Thirdly, you just entered a master's degree. What are you thinking about? And then about 9 months later, or when we found out, I had gone to North Carolina. I had a wedding scheduled with a friend, and it was still a couple weeks from when she was supposed to give birth. But we get there, we're there the day before rehearsal, and get a phone call from Stacy saying, I'm having contractions, probably nothing, having contractions. The next morning she calls and says, I'm on the way to the hospital. This is the real deal. I take Becky 3 hours to the Atlanta airport, but before we can get to the airport, the baby's born. I missed my first grandson being born. As a matter of fact, I didn't just miss it. I didn't get home for 3 days. I still had to do the rehearsal, then the wedding. And I remember getting there and holding this little one for the first time, my first grandchild. I thought, I'm too old for this. No, that's not what I thought. I'm too young for this. No, that's not it either. I thought, oh my goodness, I need more of these. Something about our heart changes. And I'm not grandpa. I'm not pops. I am Pop. Every now and then they'll call me Pastor Pop. It's a little formal. I tell them I prefer Dr. Pop. But that was the first grandchild. Colin now is 10th grade at Riverview, 6 feet tall. He's not the same little boy that I held 15 years ago. The second grandchild was Peyton. Now, Becky and I had planned a trip to Israel with some sun coasters. And Peyton was, we'd not even thought about it, but all of a sudden, once we get closer to the trip, this trip is planned a year in advance. Stacy says, oh, I want to let you know, we find out I'm pregnant. Did you consult with me? I had this trip. When do you think you're going to be due? What do you mean, January? I'm going to be in Israel in January. So on January 23rd, as we were getting on the plane to leave to come back, I got a call. My granddaughter was born while I was in airport, really in Rome. So I get to go home and see Peyton, and that's the second one, and she's here today, and she's lovely, 12. She's to be 13 next month. Then there's Brady, 10 years old. We own a house in Saddle Creek. We bought another house, and Stacy was moving into our house just to be the middle of June, and she was pregnant with Brady, her third child. And we get ready for this move in Saddle Creek, and we move on a Friday, and she moves on a Monday or Tuesday, whatever it is. And when she moves in, it's her birthday. Stacy's very particular about her birthday. June 15th, her special day. And his due date was really close. And she said, I hope he's not born on my birthday. But for a birthday gift, one of her friends gave her a coupon for a massage on the 41. She's at 41 getting, they do a massage, facial massage. You know what a facial is? They did a facial. But part of the facial, they rubbed the calves of the legs, this stuff. But when they rubbed the calves of her legs, her water broke. She drove straight from the facial place to Sarasota Memorial. But guess where I was? At my office. I say, let's go, Becky. We're going to the hospital. We're not going to miss the third grandchild. Come on, Becky. We got plenty of time. She went straight to the hospital. She was in the emergency room. They finally took her up to the OBGYN area, and the doctor came in, or the nurse came in to check her. She had the baby. They had to pull a doctor out of the hallway. 30 minutes from the time she had a facial, she had the baby. I get to the hospital. I go upstairs and say, I'm here to see my daughter, Stacy Holman. She's in labor. They said, no, she's not. She's had the baby. But I thought, that's close enough. But they brought her out about an hour later, and they bring her in a wheelchair. And you ever seen somebody after they've had a facial, how they look? Not good. And I remember seeing her, and she screaming because she wanted an epidural. The big thing goes, I need an epidural, I need an epidural. And they said, too late. Not going to get an epidural. And she just gone through this very horrific childbirth experience, plus not having a facial. I remember looking at her and just went. But I'm older. I learned, keep your mouth shut. Save it for a sermon. It's so much better to hear it here. So, on her birthday, she had this little boy. It was amazing. 2 years later, let's go through the grandkids. Laura and Ricardo, who are on stage today, they had their first child 8 years ago. And ironically, they had the baby in November on Thanksgiving. We brought them Thanksgiving dinner at the hospital. And then the last one, London, who's now 6 years old, someone had offered us a condo on Siesta Key for a few days. And Becky and I were out there on Siesta Key. We invited Stacy out with her kids, invited Laura out. She's pregnant with her baby. And we get there, and we've got it the rest of the week. We're only there 2 nights. We have a whole week. She said, well, so I'm having some contractions. So, well, let's go to Outback, which is on 41, right off the Key. So we went to Outback. She went straight to the hospital, gave birth. We get the granddaughter. We go home. See, people don't think about me. I mean, I go through all the crisis of life. I mean, it's amazing how that turns out. But imagine when Jesus was born. No epidural for Mary. No moms nearby. No pops. No restaurants. No Outbacks. I mean, can you imagine? Just no family at all. All she has is Joseph. And I don't know much about Joseph, but he hasn't impressed me so far. I mean, I don't know how much resource he has, just one donkey maybe. Do you think it was chaotic for me? Yes. Can you imagine 2,000 years ago, the chaos? It seems like the major events of our lives come with a certain amount of chaos, stress. And let me tell you about your chaos. In the last 2 years, you've just lived through a pandemic. What you've lived through is history that's going to be written about in the future, what you guys and what we've lived through. What kind of chaos? Do you know families have been isolated? Marriages have been postponed or taken place in a small group. Funerals have had no one there. Hospital rooms with family members who passed away have not had their families allowed in. It's been devastating. Vacations, family events are just not the norm. What can we do when chaos comes to our house? At Suncoast, even recently, we've had some losses of some fine people who passed away. We have some who have terminal cancer. We've also had some babies being born. The thing called the circle of life is true. In each event, whether it's life or death, there's chaos and stress. But here's the question for us. In the midst of my chaos, where can I turn? What are those things that give birth to hope? How is hope uncovered? How can we discover meaning in a storm? Which leads me to the second thought today. It's this, and the answer is, our awareness of God with us creates a deep sense of our place in the world. It's amazing how a baby responds to chaos. You know, when babies, when they're in a rowdy room or a lot of noise, sometimes babies just shut down. They take a nap. And not only do they can find peace in chaos, they can create chaos out of peace. I mean, you go shopping with them and you'll see. I wonder how the shepherds felt on that night where they were taking care of the sheep and all of a sudden the sky explodes and there's a story that says, the angels are singing, behold, go to Bethlehem, you're going to find this young couple with a baby in the feed bin in this cave-like structure. And they did it and found it just as it was told to them. About 8 days later, as Jewish custom, they take the baby to the temple. They take him to this old priest who's probably 85 or 90 years old. In my mind, he is. And they put him in the hands of Simeon, the high priest, and he takes his baby and lifts him up, and he looks and he goes, Sovereign Lord, I've been waiting my whole life to see this. And as you've promised, now you can dismiss your servant in peace. For my eyes have seen the hope of humanity. My eyes have seen what I've been longing for. I've seen the future, the remedy for bondage, the promise, the one. My eyes have seen the Logos, which will bring light into the darkness. Can you imagine? Can you imagine discovering what can change the world is in your hands? See, that's what Christmas is about. Being in the presence of the holy. Being in the presence of the Logos. Being in the presence of that which will offer humanity peace. See, Simeon said it, and I think it's true. I see what it is that can change the world. Now, I'm not Simeon, but folks, I can tell you, I see what it is that can change the world. It's the presence of God all around us. And I've seen the future a place where God lives in the hearts of humanity. And our focus, when it shifts, you can see it too. Which leads to the last thought. It's this: God with us in the chaos is the message of Christmas. You know, life is wonderful. It's dynamic. So, but you don't know how many Christmas parties I've had. Oh, yeah, I do. I've had more than my share. But life is dynamic. It's ever-changing. It's moving. Compared to water, it's like the whitewater rapids in North Carolina, or it's like the Siesta Beach when a storm comes through, the waves are crashing in. That's life. It's dynamic. Or you can live life as static. Static water to me is like a mud puddle. Not much water running in and out, kind of stale. And some people long for their life to be this stale mud puddle, and I don't get it. Because I live with a dynamic life. I think it's wonderful. Sometimes older folks, you know, they are healthy. They seem to enjoy life. They keep going. My mom's 95 years old. She's like the Energizer Bunny. She just keeps going. She has a dynamic life. But with dynamic life, there are also some risks. I live a dynamic life. I'm active. I've played a lot of sports. I've been a scuba diver since I was 16 years old. I've skydived 3 times. I've gone parasailing off a mountain. I'm married. I take all kinds of risks. In the last 4 years, I've had 3 major surgeries. One shoulder repaired, which you remember, and then a year or so later I had the other one fixed. I had heart ablation surgery to where the rhythm of my heart had been off since I was a kid, and they fixed it. Why do I go through all that effort? Because I want to keep on living the dynamic life. In the pain and chaos of life, God reveals himself as the God of order, but also the God of dynamic life. What I've discovered, I trust him with my chaos. In the creation, out of the disorder, God spoke and creation began. But in Bethlehem, God spoke in a new way. He revealed his true nature, love for us all. Not a fear-based God, but a love-based God. Want to see what God wants for us? He reveals himself in a person. His name is Jesus. And this week, we're going to celebrate his birthday. Can I pray for you? Father, thank you for all the good things of life. Thank you for my friends, my community. I pray blessing upon them. May this be a week of celebration of life that is dynamic and full and joyful because you are near and in us, we pray. In Christ's name, amen. Would you stand? I want to tell you a story in closing. Thank you so much for coming. But yesterday, like I said, I had a big family gathering, and my sister, who's a school teacher, her name is Sandy. She's 1 year younger than me. I have a sister 1 year older as a school teacher, sister 1 year younger that's a school teacher. My brother's sitting here today. I'm looking right at him right now, but he's here. But Sandy, being a teacher, she teaches an interesting class. She teaches children who have extreme learning and emotional disabilities. So she only has 4 or 5 kids in the class and usually has an aide to help her. It takes a special person to work with those kind of kids. And she tells a story of a little boy in her class. I'll call him Andrew. He's 8 years old. And his mother promised to take Andrew trick-or-treating. He loves candy. He wanted to go trick-or-treating. But something happened and she had to go to the hospital on the night of Halloween, and she could not take Andrew trick-or-treating. Andrew came to class every day and said, I didn't get to go trick-or-treating. Everybody else got to trick-or-treat. I didn't. He's fixated on candy, upset that he got none. But for a few days, it was all he talked about. But she couldn't help it because his mother had to go to the hospital. One day, during playground time, when Sandy, my sister, is in her office in the class, her aide is out helping with the kids on the playground. One of her students starts screaming and is upset. Sandy, hearing the screaming and the upset, she comes out because she's in charge. She said, what happened? Andrew, crying, screaming, what's the story? One of the kids had brought some candy and had a lollipop in his mouth and had it in for a while, but it fell out of his mouth into the dirt. Andrew picked it up and put it in his mouth. He thought he'd scored pretty good. The teacher's aide, Mrs. Smith, who's 79 years old, was so upset that he put that dirty lollipop, even though it had been in there a few minutes, she forcefully took it out of his mouth. And he said she'd pulled his teeth out. Mrs. Smith was arguing with him, saying germs were on the lollipop. Finally, my sister got involved, calmed things down. The day ended. She called Andrew's mom and said, hey, you might be upset. This is what went on, which is what a good teacher will do. And when she told her story at home, one of her grandkids said, Grandma, we have extra candy. Would you take some to Andrew? So the next day, she took some of her grandkids' candy to school with her. Of course, she called her mother in the morning and said, hey, I want to bring this candy. Is it okay if we get to Andrew? She said it was fine. And when she gets there, she shows Andrew the candy, and she's going to give it to him a little bit at a time. Andrew's all smiles. Then Mrs. Smith walks up, and she hears what's going on. She says, really? You're going to give this kid candy? He doesn't deserve candy. He's a little screaming rascal, and he doesn't deserve it. My sister, in front of Mrs. Smith and Andrew, said, enough. Haven't you, looked at Mrs. Smith, haven't you ever heard of grace? Andrew may not deserve it, but grace is a gift when you may not deserve it. My sister then gave Andrew a lollipop. Mrs. Smith turned around and stomped off in a huff. An hour later, Andrew came to my sister and asked, Miss Claskell? She said, yes. Can I have some more grace? Isn't that the story of Christmas? That in the middle of the chaos of life, when I made a mess of things, can I have a little more grace, a little more forgiveness, a little more love? The answer is absolutely you can. Christmas is about a little more grace. That's just what we all need. I'm here to remind you, he loves you today, and so do I. God bless. Thanks for coming.